Right, hello then guys, welcome back to the Golden Sky. It is Wednesday, the 13th of August 2025. I'm Tom, welcome back to another video. Today, the Premier League predictions video. Yes, a very buzzword kind of video today. Everyone's got to do one of these if you make videos about football. And the Premier League is almost back, so no better time to lay down the predictions. If you are new around here, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. It would really help me out. If you're listening on the podcast, as always, 5-star ratings and reviews. We love you guys as well. Thank you very much for joining me today. So, the Premier League is nearly back, guys. Today we're going to go through my Premier League predictions. I will preface this video first by saying these are impossible. Predicting the Premier League and where everyone will finish is impossible. Anyone who thinks they can do it flawlessly is an idiot. It is so hard. There's always a team that surprises you for good reasons and bad reasons. It's really difficult to get everyone nailed on, but we're going to try our best today, and let's see how many we get right by the end of the season. Maybe we can revisit and have a look. So that's the plan. Someone at work today actually asked me, before we just get into the predictions here, someone at work asked me when the Premier League was back. It's just the girl I sit next to today asked me when football was back. And I told her this weekend. And she goes, "When does it finish?" You fool. It doesn't finish till May. The football is back, baby. And we're all very happy about it. She couldn't believe it. She was like, "May?" And I was like, "Come on, you must know that football, the season lasts a year." Well, she was having none of it. So I really took great delight in telling her that. I really did. We're back with the football. I'm so excited. I hope you're excited as well. And with all that said, should we get into today's predictions? Yes, I think we should. Right. So we're going to start at the bottom today. Not like my mate Drake, who's actually not my mate. I don't know him at all, and he might be a dodgy guy. But there we go. We're going to start in 20th. And we're going to start with, surprise, surprise, a newly promoted team. And I will also say, guys, because it's annoying me, right? There's a fly in this room, okay? He's somewhere knocking about. And if you see him or you hear him, I apologise. Nothing I can do. He's an idiot. He just keeps smashing his head into the window. I think he's behind the blind, maybe. You can't quite see, but just letting you know. Like I said, in 20th, nothing to do with the fly, but we're going to put a newly promoted team, and we're going to put Burnley. Now, Burnley just come up, as we said, newly promoted, and it's no shock to put a newly promoted side in last place. It's unfortunate, but I think last 2 years in a row now, all 3 promoted teams have been relegated instantly, and I'm putting Burnley last in this year's table. Now, it's a tricky choice to choose who comes last. I don't think there'll be a team as glaringly bad as Southampton were last year, who for a while looked like they might match Derby, the worst team ever in the Prem. But Burnley, the reason why I put them last is I'm worried about where they're going to score. That's the problem I have with Burnley. So last year they were actually really amazing defensively in the Championship, like historically good, which is a good base to build on, and especially can be successful as long as you can score a few goals. And that's where I worry. They remind me a little bit of Sheffield United from a few years back in their second season. When they came up, they had a really good first year, and then they couldn't score any goals, and they were rock bottom and went down. And I worry if something similar could happen to Burnley. So they have signed Broha from Chelsea. So he's a striker, 23 million euros, I think, roughly they spent on him. So he's a striker they've brought in. They've brought in a lot of other players. But looking at Broya, for example, I'm not sure. He's not scored goals consistently for years now. at the different clubs he's been at, and I just don't think he has the firepower to keep them up. I think they'll be closer to the team in 19th than Southampton were, like I said, but the signings, Ugo Chukwu, Marcus Edwards, they re-signed Jadon Anthony, they got Jacob Brun-Larsen on a permanent deal, Kyle Walker coming in at 35, Dubravka at 36, like, these are names we know, played in the Prem for a while, but they don't, they're getting on a bit now, especially Walker. How much have they got left in the tank? Is it enough to keep them up? I don't think so, and I'm putting them in last place. Despite them actually doing, I think, relatively decent business. They spent a lot of money, but losing James Trafford as well in the goal, obviously a big player for them in the Championship, goes to City, highly rated young goalkeeper. I think that's going to harm them as well, and that defensive record. They've also lost Josh Brownhill, who was a bit of a hero of the promotion in the Championship. Had a really good season. So, yeah, they're going to struggle, I think, and I'm putting them in last place. So sorry to any Burnley fans, but you are last. But on the bright side, you made it to first in the video today. So we'll go into the team in 19th now. So unfortunately, it is going to be another newly promoted team. Who will it be? It's Sunderland. For me, I think Sunderland are going to come 19th. They're going to go down. First time back in the Prem in a long time, and they've really took advantage of the parachute payment that they got, and they spent a lot of money. I mean, they're a big club, so they have funds. 150 odd million they've spent so far, and I actually like some of their signings as well, kind of similar to Burnley. I actually think they've had the best window of the promoted teams. You look at some of the players they brought in. They brought Xhaka in, good Prem experience, and did really well at Leverkusen, and by no means is finished, only at 32. Adingra from Brighton is, for a moment there, looked like quite an exciting winger for Brighton. Didn't quite kick on and maybe fell out of favour, but still exciting player. They got Habib Diarra. They spent the most money on him. Don't know all that much about him, but by all accounts, looks like he could be a promising midfield prospect. Spent 30 odd million on him. So, like I said, him and Xhaka in the middle. Could that be a bit of a recipe? Sort of replacing Job Bellingham, who they sold to Dortmund, who was a big player for them in their promotion push. We signed Enzo Lefebvre. They've got Masuaku in on loan. He's played for West Ham a few years ago in the Prem. They got Reynaldo. They've basically signed a lot of players. Sunderland. They've gone with sort of the Forest approach a few years ago, and it actually kept Forest up. And it was difficult for me to put Sunderland in 19th. I will be honest, because I do like their signings. However, I just think the other teams in the league are stronger, and they have. It's tough to look at the other teams and think they will struggle enough to go down, in my opinion. So, except for maybe one, but we'll get to them later. And I'll put Sunderland in 19th place. Like I said, they did lose Bellingham. They lost Tom Watson as well to Brighton, who I think he scored the goal to get them up in the end, young winger. So, pleased to have Sunderland back, to be honest, but 19th. Okay, in 18th then, and I tried my absolute best. I really did try, guys, to keep them up in my predictions. I really didn't want to do this, but I have to put Leeds United in 18th place, going down. I was really trying to convince myself that the team in 17th could be worse, but I just don't think they are. And my Leeds bias, for those who don't know, I really like Leeds. I don't really know why. I just have some sort of weird affinity to them, even though Liverpool is obviously my team. But yeah, I just don't think they have enough in their team. And perhaps if I didn't have the Leeds bias, I might even put them in 19th and Sunderland in 18th. But I don't think they have enough to stay up. I mean, their window as well, they've signed some experienced players. They haven't really gone for the youngster approach. They've got sort of mid-20s and a lot of their signings. You're looking at Anton Stash from Hoffenheim, Biol from Udinese, Lucas Perry from Lyon. They got Longstaff, a name that you might know from Newcastle. These are 26, 26, 27, 27. So they've gone for proven players who are decent, solid players. That's not all they've got. They have added a few other players, but I just don't think that squad's strong enough. Their team isn't strong enough. I struggle to look at Leeds' team and think who's the best player, like who's the starlet of the team, um, especially in the attack. They've lost Mana Solomon, who his loan has finished. He was big for them last season in the Championship. Got Nyonto still. They've got Pirro up front. It's just difficult to see where they have enough to stay up, despite them having a good preseason. Like, is Dan James going to do enough to keep them up? I don't know. I don't think so. It wouldn't surprise me if they come 19th, but I put them in 18th because that's how we do things on the Prem predictions. You just have to make guesses because it's all just a guess, to be honest. But marching on together, we love you, Leeds. Come on, please stay up. But there's one team who I put in 17th, right? Who are the only team really in the league. Maybe two, but the real one that I was topping and turning. Is that a word? Chopping and churning? I don't know. Is that a phrase? Who I was considering saying they were going to get relegated, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. And that team is Wolves. I have Wolves in 17th. The main reason why is because you look at what they've done last season. They were not really close to going down, but they were in and amongst the bottom. And they lose Cunha, who's by far the best player to United, and they lose Ait Nouri, who's probably their second best player, maybe, to Man City. So with those going out, it's difficult to see how they improve, and to me, they get worse. They've re-signed Strand Larson. Well, they've signed him permanently now. He was on loan last season, but he was there last year, so it doesn't necessarily improve them. And I think without Cunha there, without Ait Nouri delivering balls into him, he's gonna maybe struggle. They've signed Fer Lopez, who's a winger, so maybe that's something to do with getting Cunha's replacement. I don't know all that much about him. He's not got the best goal scoring return over in Spain. He is young though. They've signed John Arias from Fluminense, who looks like an entertaining player, but he's never played in Europe, as far as I'm aware. So it's a big step to come into the Premier League. So I think they'll struggle. But ultimately they have enough Premier League experience in the team. They have João Gomez still. They have Andre in the middle. I think that's pretty solid midfield. So I do like Strand Larson as well, even though maybe he might struggle a little bit this year. It depends on how much service he gets. But I put them in 17th. I think they'll stay up, but only just. But I nearly put them in 18th and put Leeds in 17th. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, guys. It's too much. Yes, I do think they'll struggle this year, Wolves. Okay. Now we'll move to 16th, obviously, in the league. And this one is a team that lots of people, I think, are down on this year. A lot of people are down on them. And if you watch other people's Prem predictions, they might have put them in the relegation zone. I don't know. I haven't watched anyone's before I did my own because I didn't want to be influenced. But it is Brentford. I have Brentford in 16th. Again, similar to Wolves, really. The reason why is because they've lost some of their best players. So, Mbermo, probably their best player, they lose him to United as well. Norgard as well, the captain, they lose to Arsenal. And at the time of recording, he still hasn't joined, but he might be joining. He probably is. He's probably leaving. Vis is going to leave as well. Vis looks like he's going to Newcastle. So that'd be big losses for them to lose Visser, Burmo, Norgard. They've also lost Flecken, the goalie, although I do think they've improved in that position by getting Callagher. I think he's a better goalkeeper than Flecken. I just think they'll struggle with those players leaving. However, I don't think they'll struggle as much as other people say. I think Brentford are a really well-run club. They've also lost Thomas Frank, which I should mention. That's a big loss. I really like Thomas Frank. I think he's a good manager. And they've appointed a risky manager in Keith Andrews, who was a set-piece coach before this. So it's risky. But Brentford are a well-run club, and I believe they must see something in this Keith Andrews, and maybe he has more potential than people are giving him credit for. They've signed Coyote, who they had on loan at the end of last season. Quite an impressive sort of fullback, centre-back hybrid, 20 years old from Fiorentina, Italian, looks like a really good prospect, to be honest. And they've signed Anthony Malambo as well from Feyenoord, who also a player I like. They've got a couple bits of experience in. They got Henderson in to replace Norgard. I like that, to be honest. I do probably have Norgard as a better player at this point in their career, but maybe he just helps them out a little bit. And that experience is vital in staying up, I think. Prime experience specifically. So they might be a little down from where they have been, Brentford, but I do think they'll stay up. I don't think they're the worst 3 teams in the league. And perhaps even if Keith Andrews gets sacked, they'd probably appoint someone fast enough to keep them up. But I actually don't have him as like a nailed on sacking. I want to give him some time to assess how he does. Like I said, I think Kelleher's a good goalkeeper. Perhaps they change style a little bit. Thomas Frank likes to play counter-attack, heavy on set pieces. And I think maybe, I don't know what Keith Andrews' style of play is, because I've never seen it. So maybe he gets the best out of some of the more trickier players, Damsgaard, Carvalho, Sharda. They're all still there. I think they need a striker. They probably get one. It looks like they're going for Django Utara from Bournemouth. He played striker a little bit last year for Bournemouth, quite a good player. I think they need more, but 16th for Brentford, I think, is fair. All right. We'll go to 15th then. I don't want to talk all that long about all these teams, but we've got to talk a little bit. We'll go to a team that honestly is so hard to predict. Really difficult to predict. I've gone with West Ham in 15th. They could easily be lower, to be honest. I'm not the biggest West Ham fan in the world, but I don't know. I feel like on paper they should be doing better than what they performed at in a few seasons prior. Like last season, people were higher on West Ham with Lopetegui there, all these new signings they made, and then they just didn't kick on. Lopetegui leaves, they appoint Potter, and it was a bit too late to really make a mark on the season. But I do think, like, whilst I'm not so sure Potter's the right manager for West Ham, they have got decent players. Like they have Bowen still, I think he's good. They have Paqueta is still there and cleared from his ban issues, I believe, his betting scandal issues. Top quality player, there's no getting around it. Fulkrug is playing in pre-season, so he's fit and he's scoring goals. If they can have him scoring goals, that's very helpful. They've got Todibo signed now permanently. They've signed a new left back called Diouf, who I really like. I think he's a good player. They have the makings there of a good squad. There's probably lots I forgot. They've still got Somerville, who I think is like okay. There's definitely more players who West Ham have who I'm forgetting here, but overall, I just do think they have a decent team. And yes, the big problem is they lost Kudus. It's a big issue. He's a really good player. But if you actually look at his output for West Ham, it wasn't amazing. Like his goals and assist numbers is not amazing. And I do think perhaps he's slightly a little bit overrated, in my opinion, Kudus. Still has a lot of work to do for me to prove himself at the highest level in the Prem, in terms of not necessarily performance, but hitting those high numbers to really cement himself as an elite level winger. Maybe he just had a club like Spurs, a much bigger club, more possession-based club. But I have West Ham in 15th. Could be lower for me, but I've gone with 15th because this is, like I said, impossible, guys. You just have to guess. Okay, we'll move on from West Ham and we'll go to a team where there really isn't all that much going on. I don't know what's going on at Fulham. I don't know if they're sleeping through the transfer window, if they know they're a football team, if they're aware that this is the summer and they have to do things. I don't know. But I've put Fulham in 14th. I think they finished 12th last year. So I've just popped them down a few places. They're still solid. They still have basically everyone. They've sold Willian and Reece Nelson's gone back on loan. I mean, they haven't even sold Willian. He just left He's out of contract. They've signed a 34-year-old goalkeeper called Lecomte for 500k. They're not going to play him. They have Leno. So it's a bit like they're the same as what they were. So a little bit worse. I really don't know. I don't know what there is to say about Fulham. If there's any Fulham fans watching, please let me know what the hell's going on, because I don't know. So I'm going 14th. They have decent players. Jimenez, I really like. Just a fun player to watch, in my opinion. Rodrigo Muniz still there. They'll be battling out for striker. I assume Iwobi's there. The defence is pretty solid. They're with Bassi and Anderson, both decent centre backs. You got Robinson at left back, who I like. I think he's a good player. Castagna right back. It's a decent back four. Kenny Tete as well. They like him. So you couple that with Leno in the goal, and it's a pretty solid team. So I don't think there'll be any danger at all, even without making any signings. They just, for me, they can't improve. So 14th for Fulham. All right. Move quickly past Fulham, and we'll go to a bit of a surprise. So I don't think anyone will have had any real issues with any placements so far. I don't think anyone will have been shouting at me. And if you are, please go for it in the comments. I'm really interested to see what you all think. But maybe this one is a bit more of a surprise. In 13th place, I actually have Nottingham Forest. Now, hear me out, okay? So Forest last year, as we know, did really, really well. They've snuck their way into Europa League. They actually got Conference League in the end, but through the dodgy laws of UEFA, worked their way into the Europa League thanks to Palace's, their gain at Palace's pain, really. So you might be thinking, they had a great season. Why would they be so much worse? Well, I actually think the Europa League will be a bit of an issue for Forest. Like, not an issue in terms of not an issue in the magnitude of that it's gonna cost them like that greatly, but I just think the focus they'll have on that is gonna take away from some of the focus in the league. I also am a bit worried about Nuno. As we know, the owner at Forest is a little bit mad. Now, Mr. Marinakis, or whatever your name is, lad, if you're watching this, don't send for me. I'm sure I don't know anything about you personally, but to me, you look a bit like you're a bit mad, to be honest, mate. We know some of the stuff he's done has been a bit strange as an owner, marching on the pitch and whatnot. And I do worry that if Nuno isn't hitting the heights of last season, which I don't think he will, they'll sack him. And I think that'll be a mistake. It's a bit of a prediction I have. So, yeah, a little worried about that. And yeah, I just think they'll have a drop off. I don't think last season was a realistic season. Like, this Forest is going to be every year up in Europe. So I think the focus they have on Europe, they've also lost Elanga. They've brought in some players. I don't know a lot about them at all. The ones they've brought in, Dan and Doy from Bologna, 40 odd million euros. Like, I don't know anything about Dan and Doy. Igor Jesus and Jair Cunha, both from Botafogo, I don't know anything about. A centre forward and a centre back, like I just don't know these players, guys. So I can't really comment on them. I won't pretend I've watched players if I haven't, like a lot of other people do, to sound like they know everything about football. It's okay not to know some players. But Forest 13th, I think they'll struggle with the extra games, losing Elanga, and I'm worried for Nuno. And also, they've scored 1 goal in pre-season. There's no fucking way Chris Wood has a season like he did last year. And if he does, then I'll do something. Because he's like a figment of my imagination, I swear. So I'm worried about their goals. So 13th for Forest, and we'll go to 12th. So we're getting closer to mid-table now. I'm sure this team in 12th will probably be pretty happy with coming 12th. And that is Everton, the Ev, in 12th. They've had a bit of trouble in recent years with relegation. I think those years are probably behind them now, moving into the new stadium with Moyes in charge. I think they've stabilised. They've got the new ownership sort of going on over there. I think they've stabilised, and to be honest, quite like Everton's business this summer. Santiano Barry from Villarreal, he's a striker, 22. Like, look, is he a player that the elite clubs would be after? Like, not yet, but that's why he goes to Everton. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean he can afford to build himself up at Everton, and Everton will happily take that risk. I think he's a good prospect, and he could score some goals for them. I like Dewsbury Hall coming in for them, another body in midfield. Chelsea signed him for seemingly a laugh last year, like didn't play him in the Prem at all. Um, so coming to Everton where he'll actually play, that's good. Alcaraz in, who was on loan last season and impressed, I think, towards the end. Got a young left back from Bayern Munich called Adam Asnu. I actually have signed him on Football Manager in the past, so um, good for you, Everton. And then the big one in the last couple of days is they've got Grealish in on loan. Like, what kind of Grealish do they get? What level of Grealish do they get? Because if he gets anything like where he was in his Villa days when he got the £100 million move to Man City, it's a great signing. It's pretty much risk free. He's on loan. He's got a lot to prove, Grealish. Still got lots left, I believe. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they get on Everton next year in the new stadium. I think they'll be solid. The defense is there. They were really good. Their defensive numbers when Moyes was appointed last season. I think they were third best for expected goals conceded in the league since Moyes' appointment. So I put Everton in 12th. All right, then we'll go to 11th. Honestly, guys, this is when things just get like it's so difficult now. These teams could be just interchanged completely. It's all mid-table. There's a reason why it's just kind of summarized as mid-table. You kind of have Europe, mid-table, relegation. It's difficult to predict. So if I'm being too kind or too harsh on anybody, let me know. But in 11th, I have Bournemouth. Now, this is a bit of a risky one, honestly, because Bournemouth have lost a lot of big players again, as have many clubs, as I've mentioned so far. But Bournemouth have been decimated, really. Zabarnyi has gone to PSG. Howson gone to Real Madrid. There were two centre-backs last season. So you can see the talent that they had there. PSG and Real Madrid signed both their centre-backs. Like, that's huge. And then, their left-back as well, Kirkes, he's gone to Liverpool. So there's three of the most elite teams in the world. Three of Bournemouth's defenders from last season have gone. So you see the level they had last year. They had really, really good players. They've all gone for big money. Now, the reason why I don't think that decimates Bournemouth is because, similar to Brentford, I think they're a really, really well-run club and they'll reinvest this money well. They've today announced the signing of Diakite from Lille, who's a centre-back, quite a good player from all accounts. I've watched a little tiny bit of Lille over the last year in Europe mostly, and I watched them play PSG as well, one game. I don't know loads about this guy, but I'm sure Bournemouth will be recruiting well. They always do. They got Petrovic in the goal to replace Kepa. Pretty like for like, in my opinion. Truffert, is that how you pronounce it? As a left back to replace Kirkes. He's a decent left back as well, from Stade Rennais. So I think they've replaced well. I think they're not done either. They're looking to sign Amin Adli to come up to be a new striker for Bournemouth. With Django Ouattara looking like he might leave. So I don't think they're done. I think they've got more signings to make, and I trust their recruitment to make good signings. And the most important thing about Bournemouth is they still have Iraola. For me, he's a really top manager, and I think he'll just keep them safe. And I'm going 11th with Bournemouth, although you could definitely convince me that they finish lower. But I'm going with 11th. Right, we'll go to the top half now, and in 10th place, this one was really tricky. I nearly put a different team here, but I ultimately have decided to go with Crystal Palace in 10th. And the reason mainly why this is so tricky is because I don't know what's going to happen with Gehi. So if Liverpool sign Gehi, Palace will be significantly worse than if they don't and Gehi stays. He's a really big player for Palace. Obviously, the captain, obviously an England international, like a big player for them. You can see in the Community Shield, they defended pretty well, despite Liverpool making a lot of chances. Liverpool, obviously, one of the best teams in the league. So, yeah, he is a big player in that back line, the system that Glasner has. not just his defensive ability, but his ability to pass the ball as well. He helps with a lot of attacks. Um, However, even if they lose him, I still think that they're good enough to finish 10th. They have a really good 11 players. They have a lot of players that I actually like. Eze obviously still there as well. That's big too. If he goes to Spurs or Arsenal, that really affects them as well and drops them down. But at the time of recording, they still have Gehi and Eze. So there we go. I can only go off what they have now. And I like Eze, I like Gehi, I like Munoz at right back. I think he's brilliant, to be honest. I think he's a really, really good player. Um, like Mateta seems to be banging in the goals still. Sarr, as much as I hate him, I have a real thing against Sarr. If any of you don't know, I don't like him. He always scores against Liverpool, but he is good. Apparently, he is quite decent. He's a threat. So, yes, Palace in 10th, mid-table. Think they'll do good. They are. I've got Conference League, which will be tricky, but yes, I do think 10th for Palace is okay. All right, so you're all wondering it. When are we going to say the team who's probably the hardest team to predict in the league? You could convince me they finish anywhere between about 7th and 17th. To be honest, I'm finally putting them in at 9th. It's Man United. I'm going with 9th. They're so hard to predict. They're so volatile. It feels like anything could go wrong at any time for United. Amorim could last the year, he could last a week, he could last a month. It really is so hard to predict. I was actually sitting at work today, and the United fans around me were all for the first time this summer saying, "Oh, maybe we could push for Europe." I think Shesko is going to be really good. And I was thinking, here it comes. This is the hope they have. It's back. They've got the hope again. They've signed Shesko, they've signed Mbemo, and they've signed Cunha. Two of those are Prem proven and good players. We've seen them be good players. Shesko, not Prem proven, but looks like a good prospect, and certainly looks like an improvement on Højlund or Xerxes. So surely they'll be better than they were last year, right? Finishing 17th or 16th or wherever they finished. Surely they'll be better. And I think 9th is appropriate for them. They have no Europe, so the focus is solely on the league. I think that helps them a lot. Like I said, the attack's much improved. They don't have Rashford anymore, sort of causing issues. They still have a lot of players that they need to shift. Their defense and midfield, for me, still needs a lot of work. Apparently, the lad I asked at work today, who goes all the United games, said he'd pick Casemiro to start in midfield against Arsenal. Like, they still need players, but 9th, I think, is fair for United. Although I'd love to see them finish 16th or lower, but I'll go with 9th. Although it could all come crashing down very quickly if they lose to Arsenal on the opening day. So if I put United in 9th, then that means I've put a team in 8th, who I think this is Conference League spot. So I believe I'm giving Conference League to this team, and that team is actually Brighton and Hove Albion. Look, Brighton, everyone knows by now, an absolutely solid Prem team. They've been better than solid in years gone by. They've made Europe a few times. We know Brighton's model by now as well. They just sign all the best young players and then sell them for 100 million a pop each summer. Are they yet to do that this summer? I mean, they sold João Pedro to Chelsea for not quite 100 million, but big money. So you got to talk about that. It's a loss. He's certainly one of Brighton's biggest players from last year. They'll miss him, definitely. But other than that, they've only lost Adingra, who they weren't really playing. They've lost Estupinian, who they weren't really playing. I actually think they've replaced with a better player in De Kuiper. So I don't think the squad's been decimated as it was maybe a few years back when they lost McAllister, Caicedo, all those guys. They've signed an 18-year-old Greek striker from Olympiacos called Kostoulas. I don't know anything about this fella, but he's probably going to be boss. They signed Tom Watson from Sunderland, like I said. Looks like a decent young winger. De Kuiper is the pick of the bunch for me. I think he's really good fullback. And I just think Brighton, they still have like a really good team. Mitoma, one of the best wingers in the league, honestly, when he's there, when he's fit. the midfield is really good. If they manage to keep hold of Baleba, I think he's a big player for them. United sniffing around there, but if they keep hold of him, I think that's big for them. He's certainly a really good player. Matty O'Reilly, I think, is due for a better season than he had last year as well. In that Brighton midfield, Minter's still there. Maybe another year in the Prem, he might improve even more. He had a decent first year. So yeah, put them in 8th. I think they're good enough for Europe. So 8th place for Brighton. That's where I'll settle with. Let me know what you think. That means then 7th place. So again, Europe here. This might be Europa League now. I think it's Europa League. It's tough to say these days, honestly. There's so many European spots in the Premier League. And a really tricky team to call because, like I said at the time of recording, their transfer business is up in the air very much, let's say, because that team is Newcastle. Now, everyone knows the big story of Newcastle. It's been going on for fucking ages. Will Isak leave? Will he go to Liverpool? And if he doesn't leave, will he play? So my answers to those questions are, will he leave? I think yes. And if he doesn't leave, will he play? I think also yes, but not for a while. He might miss a month or two, and then he may leave in January anyway. But I do think he leaves, so I don't think we even get to that point. So that's obviously a big hit to them. They'll probably get Visser. I think that one probably gets done eventually. So that's one striker they'll have. Will they go for another? I think they'll try. Will they get one? I don't know. They've got Elanga. They've got Thiaw from Milan. Like, these are both good players. Elanga certainly looked like a really good Premier League winger last year for Forest. They spent big money on him to sign him. And Thiaw from Milan, a centre-back, is a good player. And I think they needed a centre-back too because Botman's fitness has been an issue, although he's a good player. Dan Burn is decent, but how long can you rely on Dan Burn as a starting centre-back, especially with Champions League as they have this year? They're going to need rotation. Cher, also, his fitness is a bit of an issue, so Thiaw is a good player to have. It looks like they're going to sign Jacob Ramsey, I believe, from Villa as well. I think it's Jacob Ramsey, not his brother Aaron. So that's a good move as well, I think. And the midfield is still really good with Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, and Joe Linton. It's a really, really good midfield. They still have Gordon, who's a good player. They have Livramento, who's a good player, and Lewis Hall, good player. They have good players littered around the team. I do think Champions League will be an issue for Newcastle this year because they're going to have to play the best players in it. So they might sacrifice a few games in the Prem. They might pick up some tired results. Sort of similar to what Villa had last year. And so I put Newcastle in 7th for that reason, a little bit down from 5th that they were last year. Especially if they lose Isak. That's massive for Newcastle. And so that's why I go with 7th for them. Right. So that means then in 6th, the last place to not get Champions League, if 5th gets it again. And a huge bump up from last year, where they finished 17th. I'm putting Spurs in 6th. Hear me out, right? I think Thomas Frank is a big appointment for Spurs. He's proven in the Prem that he can get results. Okay, Ange was exciting, and I think he was unlucky to be sacked based on winning the trophy. But Thomas Frank has shown that he has the experience in the Prem to do well with a small club. Can they do it with a big club? That's the challenge for Spurs. They have Champions League as well, so that's going to be a distraction, but their squad is much more well built out to cope with the demands of Champions League football and Premier League football because this is where they've been for the last few years in Europe. Unfortunately, Maddison has done his ACL and looks like he's going to be out for the whole year, if not most of it. That's a big loss. He's a really good player and a key player for Spurs. I really like Maddison, to be honest. But they've signed Kudus. They've got Tell on a permanent deal. They've got Danso on a permanent deal. They've got João Palhinha in on loan. I think that definitely helps them. I like the addition of him coming back to the league after not really having the best time with Bayern. I think he'll help them in the middle. They've finally moved on from Son. He's left to go to America, so it's going to be strange not seeing him at Spurs, but it gives an opportunity to some of the other players. And if they get Eze, that's huge for Spurs, I think. They'll have really improved their attack. If they have a lineup of Solanke up front with Eze, Kudus, maybe Kulusevski in behind. They've got Tell. They've got, what's his name? Odegaard. it's a good attacking five there that I just named those players. They still have more. Obviously, they got Madison, but he's injured. Richarlison's still at the club. Like they have a good team, and I don't think they'll be anywhere near as bad as they were last year. I think Frank will show them up defensively a lot more. He'll certainly not play as like crazy one dimensional as Ange was. That's a big thing with Thomas Frank. He will happily change his tactics. And I really, really think that's a good aspect about him. So I'm going with 6. I think they'll get Europa League. They'll be much better in the league this year, and I think the Champions League will just affect them enough to not get that top 5. So who do I put in 5th then? The place that might be a Champions League spot, it was last year, and I'm giving it to Aston Villa. Now, this is interesting because Villa have been a little quiet in the market. They've finally made another signing. They signed Ozcan early on, who's a young centre-back, and they finally made another signing, Gasson from Nice, who I actually really like. He's been getting a lot of buzz, so I was looking into him a little bit. He's a striker, sort of can also play probably on the wing, but looks like a striker to me. Decent player. I think Watkins still there, going to be the main man, but it's nice to always have options, especially given the fact they will have Europa League this year, which I think they'll make a big push for. But I think they'll be able to rotate a little in the Europa League, especially in those early stages. And whilst they'll make a push towards the end, I think they still have a really good squad built out for the Champions League, which they were in last year, so they can cope with the demands. Morgan Rogers, I mean, I really like him. I think he's really, really good, guys. So he's a big player for them. I just think their team overall is really good, and I really like Emery as well. I think he's got, the tactical side of his game is really strong. He's got a really good relationship with Villa by the looks of things. So I just think Villa are going to have a best season than they had last year without having to cope with Champions League football and instead having Europa League to focus on. I just think they can take advantage of some of those other clubs like Spurs and Newcastle having Champions League as a distraction and move them up into 5th. I think Villa's team is well ready for it. And yeah, I just like the look of them, to be honest. I think 5th is a decent shout for Villa. Let me know if you disagree. So that leaves the top 4 then, and we all know what teams are left. I think it's no secret. The top 4 is probably the most boring of the predictions, honestly. Or maybe to see who goes first is going to be exciting. But in 4th place, I don't think this will be a surprise to many people. I think they'll be pretty popular to put in 4th. I have Chelsea. So Chelsea are funny because they've spent a bunch of money. I think they spent the most in the league again. They've signed a load of players. I'll just rattle some off. João Pedro, Liam Delap, Jamie Gittins, Estevao, Kendry Pires, Esrogo. There's loads. So they've signed a lot of players. I think some of them are going to be good. But they have 40 odd first-team players still. So to me, they're still a mess. They've sold a lot. I don't think any of them are damaging. Madueke, Dewsbury Hall, João Felix, Petrovic. None of these are damaging players to Chelsea at all. So I don't think that's an issue. And I think, obviously, with Palmer as the star man, they should now really be looking to push towards the top of the league. I think last year they sort of stumbled into where they finished. No one else was really ready to take that spot from them. And they were up and down through the season, Chelsea, but they ended up with 4th, and I think they'll be 4th again. I don't know. I don't think they're quite ready to do a title charge yet. I think the players they have are a few years off that, but Palmer, and maybe if João Pedro kicks on the way he did in the Club World Cup, they could have a good season and maybe finish in that top 4. I think people are overrating them slightly based on the Club World Cup win. You got to take into account they've had no preseason, basically. I think that's going to affect them. Definitely, I think they'll pick up some injuries, but they have the squad to deal with it. They have 40 players. Will that be an issue as well? I don't know. But 4th, I think, is appropriate for Chelsea. So, the top 3 then. Oh, who's it going to be? Well, this is a really tricky one. 3rd. It's really tricky. Tough to call between these 3 teams, but in 3rd place, I'm finally not putting them 2nd. I'm putting Arsenal in third. Now, okay, the Arsenal fans are going to have pure head loss about this, I'm sure. But I think Arsenal, I don't want to say they've missed their chance, but I think I don't even want to say they're going to be worse. I just don't think they're going to come first or second. Basically, look at the transfer window. It's to me, it's quite risky. So Zubimendi, I think that's a good signing. I think he'll be good for them. But to me, he replaces Party, who for all his issues off the field, and they're awful, um, is a good player on the field. So for me, it's not going to really kick them on into being a much better team to have Zubimendi. They've signed Gyökeres, and that's the big if with Arsenal. How good is Gyökeres going to be? If Gyökeres is 25 goals in the league striker, it's going to be hard to convince me that Arsenal aren't near the top. And I'm talking like first or a couple points off. But I don't think he will. And that's going to be a big talking point this season. Will Gyökeres be the man to fix their issues and catapult them from second into first? I don't think so. And that's why I put them from second into third. Because not really a knock on Arsenal, but I don't think they've improved this summer. I don't think they've got better. Madueke doesn't improve them for me at all. Mosquera doesn't improve them. Norgard doesn't improve them. They've not sold anybody for a lot of money. If they got Eze, I think that improves them, but they've not yet got Eze. Still think they're short. Gyökeres could improve them, but for me, it's still up in the air, and I don't think they have enough to win the league. Their defense, fantastic. Midfield, okay. Rice, Zubimendi, good. Odegaard, good, but had a bad season. Let's see how he plays this year. I don't know. I don't think they have the depth. I really don't. And whilst they have a really good team, I just don't see them winning the league. I just don't see it. So third for Arsenal. So that means who's going to win the league? Who is it going to be? Well, guys, you're on a Liverpool channel. So that might be a spoiler because that's right. I'm putting Man City in second. And the reason why I'm putting Man City in second before we get to the team in top spot, which you all now know anyway, for me, City, look, this is going to be close this year. I think it's going to be really close. And I think City will be better this year than they were last year. Definitely. They have made good signings. I think Reinders is a really good signing. Really like Reinders. One of the best players in Serie A last year. Scored a lot of goals. Can do lots of different things in the middle, not just score goals. He can be a box-to-box midfielder. He can be a holding midfielder. I think he's a really good signing. Ait Nouri as a left back. They definitely needed a traditional fullback, and I think he's going to help them a lot. Cherky in the middle, in that sort of 10 position or right wing. I think the jury could be out on him this year. Let's see how he does. But so talented, super talented, and an exciting player to watch. So that'll be interesting. They've got him on a nice cheap deal. They've got James Trafford, and they've got a young, they've got a young Norwegian centre midfielder called Nipan, who isn't really highly rated, but I don't know how much he'll play. I don't think he's going to really kick them on into second. But I do think having Rodri back will help them a lot, even though he is injured for the start of the year. I think he'll help them lots and lots. They have Haaland still. The team's amazing, guys. They have an amazing team. They look like they are selling Savinho to Spurs. I should have mentioned that as well when I talked about Spurs. So he looks like he's going. Don't think they'll miss him all that much. They have a lot of players. You know, they have Foden, Doku, like I said, Cherky, Bernardo Silva, all can play on those wing positions. There's probably more. Yeah, a billion players. Marmoush is going to get a full season. You have to remember, guys, they spent 200 million in January of last year as well. So whilst they've signed these guys in summer, they also invested heavily in January, and I believe that's going to help them this year as well to improve. I think they'll be much better. I can't see Guardiola doing as bad with City as he did last year. I don't think he's ever not won the league 2 years in a row in his whole managing career. So let's see if that happens for the first time here. Because in first place, I, of course, have the mighty Reds, Liverpool FC, and this might be a little bit of Liverpool bias, perhaps. But I don't think it is. Liverpool are the favourites this year. It's a unique position for them to be in. Last season, they were not really considered for the title at all, and they went and won it. Easily, may I say. But you've got to look at the transfer window. They win the league. They've signed Wirtz, who's the best signing of any player in the Prem, on paper at least. Let's see how it translates. Gatike is a striker that's come in. They needed one. We needed one. Like, he's come in. He looked great in the Community Shield. So hopefully he kicks on for Liverpool, and they have a good striker. They've replaced both fullbacks with Robertson getting older and Trent leaving, with Kirkes and Frimpong, two really exciting fullbacks, young fullbacks with lots of pace, lots of ability. I think they're really good signings, smart signings. And obviously they're now in the mix for centre-backs, with Leone from Parma looking like he might come in, really highly rated teenage centre-back, and also still in the mix for Gehi. And the big one is Isak. Still in the mix for Isak. At the time of recording, he still hasn't moved. He's still at Newcastle, but if they sign him, I don't see how you can say Liverpool are not favourites to win this league and put them in first in your predictions. And even without him, they could still be there, although I do think we are a little short in attack still at this very moment in time. But yes, I do put Liverpool top of the league for number 21, and that is how the season predictions look from me. That's everyone. So just a quick recap. Hopefully there's a graphic on the screen if I made one. But you've got Burnley, Sunderland, Leeds, Wolves, Brentford, West Ham, Fulham, Forest, Everton, Bournemouth, Palace, United, Brighton, Newcastle, Spurs, Villa, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man City, and Liverpool on top. So let me know if you enjoyed, guys. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Like I said, if you have enjoyed the video and you've watched at this point, go and drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel as well, because if you've watched this long of me talking, you must have enjoyed it. So there'll be plenty more coming. Go and like and subscribe. Comment away if you did enjoy. If you disagree or agree, please let me know. I'm eager to see and hear what you all think. But yes, we'll be back later this week for a preview of the Prem, coming back, watching Bournemouth v Liverpool on Friday. So hopefully I'll see you all then. If you did enjoy today's video as well, guys, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate having you around. The Premier League is nearly back, and that's all from me today. So until next time, everyone, speak to you all very soon. Goodbye.